I didn't think it was going to get this bad. So it's gotten a lot worse than I imagined. So is it going to get worse? Possibly. But I'm preparing for it, not, hiding in a bunker, if you know what I mean. We can counter communism taught in schools by teaching capitalism in our homes. And see, that's where I learned about capitalism. I learned about capitalism at home, not at school. I learned communism at school. But the media is now completely, as you know, on the dark side. I am fighting for capitalism because capitalism is about freedom. You can be a communist if you want, but don't take my freedom away. So what's going on with the Fed? The Fed has got no power. There's the European shadow bank system. It's got more power. But the Fed, what they're trying to get us to believe is that there's inflation. It's really what's happening is we're in depression. I talk about gold, silver, Bitcoin, not because I'm a gold, silver, Bitcoin fan. I just don't trust the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. I buy stuff that's outside their system. I think people should pay attention. That's why I love YouTube, because I get real teachers, a lot of them are fakes. But this is the enemy here. It says $10 billion. Zimbabwe. I want people to see this because this is the future of the dollar. If you understand that, that's why they're paying people not to work. They just printed $10 trillion to prevent the economy from collapsing. What's happening is Jay Powell of the Fed is trying to push the yield curve up. But as most of you know, the real yield curve is the euro-dollar curve. It's not the Fed curve. And the euro-dollar curve went inverted. Now, every time that has happened, tragedy follows. So that's why I think the Fed is toast. Once again, the euro-dollar yield curve inverted just recently. And I'm standing alongside my friend Jim Rickards that this next one is going to be the biggest of all. Now, it's good news for some people, but horrible news for the boomers who are starting to retire. So if you're a stock market person and you're counting on the stock market to keep you alive, let's say you're 65 years old and you're going to live to 85, you might be in serious trouble. It's really, really horrible. But it was predicted in this book here. I'm not a communist, but it's called the Communist Manifesto. This book here is only 50 pages. Marx was an idiot, but he was a smart guy. He predicted everything that's happening today in America. So he said that what's going to happen, and it's happening in this country here, is the boomers will go bust. So unfortunately, what Marx was saying was that capitalism would destroy 50% of the population and shove them into poverty. But my point here is this: you've got to be aware. There's no answer, just pay attention. And the reason I recommend gold, silver, Bitcoin is because I trust Bitcoin more than I trust Biden. I don't trust the dollar, if you can understand that. I don't trust the Treasury and I don't trust Biden. And we cannot control the outside that well, but we can control this inside. My own brain, my own emotions, my own spirituality, and my own physicalness. I can control me. So I'm a leader inside of me. I didn't think it was going to get this bad. The question is, what's going on inside? I am a billionaire in debt. You know why? Because I get tax breaks for borrowing money. And the reason I am so rich is because I'm in debt. And my friend Dave Ramsey says, live debt free. I'm going, well, you're an idiot. I mean, he's my friend, but I say, Dave, I like debt. He says, I know, but most people can't handle debt. I said, I agree. But that's why there's no financial education in schools, because if you knew how to handle debt, you wouldn't save that crappy dollar you have in your hand. I'd rather borrow the money tax-free. I have to invest it to make more money. Everybody thinks it's real estate, stocks. You know, when I talk to most idiots out there, they go, oh, I have a 401k. I go, well, you've been sold a bill of goods, sweetheart. The government sponsors this 401k. I said, no, the Federal Reserve and Wall Street sponsors it. If you study history, in 1974, there was an act called the ERISA Act, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. That led to a thing called the 401k. And that was in 1974, just after Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and then the economy could boom through the stock market. So do I own any stocks? No, because I'm not a communist. I'm a capitalist. I don't have to buy stocks. I invent my own. That's what capitalists do. The more money I borrow, the less tax I pay.
So what happens? So let's say I own a commercial building. I buy it for $1 million. It goes up to $10 million. Most guys would sell it. The moment you sell, let's say, a basis of 1 million to a basis of 10, I have a $9 million capital gains. So instead of selling it, flipping it like those flippers do, I don't flip, I don't sell. See, the moment you sell, as you know, as an attorney, you've now executed a capital event, a taxable event. So what I do, let's say I buy a property for $1 million, it goes to $10 million. I'll borrow out $5 tax-free. It's going to crash. We're on a depression right now. A recession is 2 quarters of declining growth, but a depression is suboptimal growth. So you could have, let's say your GDP should be 4%, but you're operating at 2%. That's a depression. People don't know history. Is that what happened on September 17th, 2019? There was a crash in the repo market. The average person has no idea what the repo market was. Then what happened in 2021, so they pumped up. So the last time there was a crash in the repo market was 2008. So I'm sitting here in 2019, September 17th. I said, my God, the repo market crashed. And then a few months later, COVID appears. I went, oh my God, here it is. Repo market is, I call it the pawn shop. It's where people go in there and what happened at the repo market is the Fed starts pumping money into the commercial banks like Bank of America and those guys, Wells Fargo. So they started pumping money into the banks because the banks were empty. That's what happened when Lehman Brothers went down. They didn't have enough cash in them. But it's not even goes into the economy. It stays within the banking system. So what happens in a reverse repo, so 2008 was a repo, 2019 was a repo, then what happened in 2021 was a reverse repo. The money started coming out of banks and going back to the Fed. Now the average guy, what does that mean? It means that the commercial banks don't trust their assets. Their assets are questionable. It's a valuation. Valuation is an opinion. This house is worth $10 million. Well, that's an opinion. So they started wondering what was the true valuation of their so-called assets. So the money started coming out of commercial banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo, flowed back into the Fed because they'd rather have it at the Fed than in the marketplace. My friends are billionaires. That's what we talk about. The average person has no idea what we're talking about. We have to watch the flows of cash. I'll bet you $1 million. You ask 100 people what the repo market is, you'd be lucky if 50 know what it means. That's not a mistake. It's not an indictment against them. It's an indictment against the school system. It's criminal. The only reason they gave the CEOs all that money is so they could repurchase their stock. So let's say I'm IBM or Ford. You give me $1 million, okay? So I borrow $5 million from the Ford's treasury. I buy $6 million of my stock. It jacks the stock price up. So mommy and daddy with their 401k, the Ford Motor Company went up in price. It's all floating on debt. Let me just say this much. Markets go up and markets come down. It's coming down. Then we're going into depression, and then we go into revolution. Depression is when more jobs are lost and they're going to have to print more money. Just as they did to prevent when Fauci, fascist Fauci shut down the U.S. economy, the whole world economy is shut down. How can they pay people not to work? America is now the largest debtor nation in history. Student loan debt is out of sight. Consumer loan debt is out of sight. Stock market is all based upon debt. The debt to GDP ratio, it's really simple. When debt to GDP hits 90%, so we have 90% debt to GDP. That's pretty optimal. That means every dollar you borrow, when it's 90%, the economy grows by 10%. So it's a 10 to 1, a 10% ratio. Today, the debt to GDP ratio is 140%. They cannot add any more money to it. It's not going to grow. That's what it means. So it's like a guy who has a house he kept refinancing his house and he loses his job. He can't borrow anymore. So that's what happens when the debt to GDP went past 90 to 1, 90% debt to GDP. Today it's 140%. We're bankrupt. Well, the average guy has no clue what I just said to you. We're already finished. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, bullets. Only reason I buy Bitcoin is I don't trust my government.
Because I make more money in crashes than I do when they go up. So, but for the average person, they'll get wiped out. I'm afraid at the worst, I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're heading for a global depression.
Global depression?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Depression. People are depressed. The economy stays down. It's hard to come back up.
And now the good news is that for those who are prepared for it, like you and things like this, you'll do better. See, not everybody dies in a plane crash, some plane crashes. But the last crash in 2008, I was on Wolf Blitzer's program 6 months before Lehman Brothers went down. And I said Lehman was going down. And nobody listened, but it went down. And so I've been expecting this market to go down for quite a while. And I'm concerned about my fellow human beings. But as you know, most Americans are clueless. They don't know what's going on. But, if you travel the world, I just got back from Africa and China and Japan and New Zealand. People are scared. Australia, which hasn't had a recession in 30 years, is in recession. But Americans are fat, dumb, and happy, having a good time, which is good. But I'm concerned. That's all I can say. I'd be afraid if I had kids. I think as an adult, you can go hungry, but you don't want to see your kids go hungry. And that's what's going to happen.
You think it's going to get that bad?
Yeah. And the US dollar is fake. Never in the history of the world has any fake money ever survived. And we're doing the same thing. We just keep printing this money. And when I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad almost 25 years ago, people said I didn't know what I was talking about. I said savers would be losers. Now, today, there's quantitative easing, which is counterfeiting money. And then you have zero interest rates. And people are still saving money. Are you nuts? They just printed, I think, $500 billion in September of this year because the repo market is going down. And the average guy goes, well, what's the repo market? They don't know. So that's why it's fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. Our education system, it has been my rant forever. Why don't we teach people about money? Why is it? We all use money, but we don't teach people about it.